Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lindsay. I post all kinds of bookish content, seasonal content, cozy hobbies. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe because I really appreciate it. Today we are going to be discussing all the books that I read in October. It's going to be kind of a short and sweet video because I only read 5 books this month, but I feel like that's pretty good based on just kind of like what my life has been recently. I've started a new job and I can't read as much, and so I feel like reading 5 books in a month. And I completed my 2025 reading goal of 50 books. I feel like that is a really amazing month. Another thing that happened this month was that Miss Taylor Swift dropped her latest album. So we are wearing our Life of a Showgirl cardigan today. I feel like it just fits the October vibes. I did get the medium large one and it is a little big on me because even the small medium ones are pretty oversized, but this is all they had left. But I had to get the cardigan because I collect all of her stuff, so that's what we're wearing today. So let's get into all the books that I read. Like I said, I read 5 books, and I honestly stayed like mostly in the fantasy genre this month, which I'm really proud of myself because sometimes I feel like I will read like one fantasy book and then I'm like kind of like done for like several weeks before I can read another fantasy book, and I'm definitely really diving in to like the fantasy genre, and I'm just like proud of myself for doing that because sometimes it's just difficult for me to kind of keep getting into the fantasy like genre. So the first book, also I am referring to my phone, I did read most of my books on my Kindle this month, and I've been finding that I just love reading on my Kindle because it's just portable. I can fit as many books on there as I want, and it just makes it really easy. And especially because the first book that we finished was Alchemized by Sin Yu, and I knew that I wanted to read this book on my Kindle because it's over 1,000 pages. I started it kind of later September, and then I didn't finish it until October. I think it ended up taking me 2 weeks to read just because, for one, 1,000 pages, and then 2, like, the subject matter of this book was so heavy that I found myself having to kind of like put it down and not being able to like come back for it for a few hours or the next day, just because I'd be like, whoa, that was a lot. I almost DNF'd it several times as well in the beginning, but then I ended up rating it 6 stars. So like, you know, sometimes if you think you're gonna DNF a book, maybe you just kind of keep going. Maybe if you unless if you really don't think that you're going to love it, then don't keep going, because I did DNF another book this month. If you think that you are absolutely going to love it, there's just some hard parts for you to get through, I encourage you to keep going, especially if you're trying to read Alchemized, because it was such an incredible book and I had such an incredible journey on it, and yeah, it's now a 6-star read for me. So if you don't know, Alchemized, which is a very popular book, so you probably do know, but it is the now published version of Manacled. Manacled was a Harry Potter fan fiction written by Sin Yu. So in her fan fiction, it's as if Harry Potter died, Voldemort won, and Hermione is now basically kind of living this Handmaid's Tale life. So it's kind of like a mixture between Harry Potter and The Handmaid's Tale. And then in the story as well, Draco is still alive in the story, and it's like a love story between Hermione and Draco. I have actually never read Manacled, and I definitely want to still possibly read it because I do have the downloadable version on my Kindle because my sister-in-law had it, so she gave it to me. I never like paid for it. I don't even know if like you were supposed to pay for it, so that might be illegal. So sorry. But I did pay for and read Alchemized. So I did support the author. I did give it 6 stars. So obviously I loved it, and I just still want to kind of see what Manacled is all about. But basically, because you can't, you know, have those characters' names in a published version of the book, you can't use the Harry Potter world, you can't use Hermione, you can't use Draco, you can't use Voldemort. This is now the published version. It's a whole new world of alchemy and necromancy. So like the bad people are necromancers and they're bringing back dead people to life. Voldemort in the story, which his name is Moro, he is an immortal person bringing back dead people and trying to make that world his own, sort of like how Voldemort wanted in Harry Potter. And then you have Helena, which is our main character, who is like the Hermione in the book, and she is a prisoner of war, and she is basically fighting for her life. She has lost all of her memories from the past like year-ish of the war whenever she was in the resistance, and people are trying to get her memory back to see the secrets that she has. And the person that is doing that to her is the Draco of the story. His name is Kane in the book, and so he is basically using his powers to try to get her memory back. And it is this 1,000-page masterpiece in my opinion, and the way that the story unfolds and the way that Sinlin Yu tells this story, I was just completely blown away by how she told it. You know, we have 3 parts in the story, and I don't want to give too much away, but like as you unravel in each part, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so intense, and the way that she has told the story is just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I gave it 6 stars, even though the subject matter was quite difficult for me to read in the beginning. I felt like as I kept going on, I was like, okay, I can see why that this is the way that it is. I can see why she wrote it like this way, and I can see why, you know, this is happening. So I think if you're like having a difficult time with the subject matter, maybe just try to keep going. If you're obviously still having a difficult time, then stop, because it is a very heavy topic. There is a lot of triggers in this book, so please make sure you look up your trigger warnings before you dive into it. But I just loved it, and I thought it was beautiful, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. If it was too triggering for you, I completely understand. The next book that we got into was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is a difficult one for me because I really wanted to love it because it is such a popular book, but I ended up rating it 3 stars, but I think it's more of a 2.5 for me, and we're gonna round it up 3 because it just really was not that good to me. This is also another story of necromancy, and it just was not on the same level as Alchemize, which is sad. And it was really fun to read during spooky season, but it just wasn't for me. And if you loved Phantasma, you know, I totally understand because it's such a fun, spicy type story, but the story just didn't hit for me. So Phantasma follows our main character, Ophelia, and her mom just died, and basically they are getting their house taken away from them, and so they need to collect a lot of money, her and her sister. Ophelia is a necromancer, and so she has that kind of magic, and then her sister decides to enter into this deadly contest that's in a haunted house called Phantasma, and Ophelia feels as if she is responsible because she is the older one, and she goes after her sister and goes into Phantasma. Where Ophelia basically kind of teams up with this man in Phantasma, and it's spicy, it's fun, and it's suspenseful for sure. And it definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. There's lots of games, there's lots of trials in the book, but the ending just did not make sense to me. And if you loved it, again, I get it. The ending though, I was just like, it was so rushed for one thing. And then another thing was, it just literally did not make sense to me. And it just was so out of pocket in my opinion. I don't know. I enjoyed it in the beginning, and I was really intrigued, and the summary of the book, or the synopsis, I was like, oh, that sounds really fun. If you watched my fall TBR, I read the synopsis in the book, and I was like, oh, that does sound really good. Like, I definitely want to read that. And then I ended up just not really liking it. So after we finished Phantasma, I was feeling a little bit down that I didn't love it, but a very popular book came out at the beginning of October, and I was like, I have to get my hands on it, and it was Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I was absolutely obsessed with Mate. I rated it 4.5 stars, or maybe 4 stars. Anywhere between 4 and 4.5 stars is where this book lands for me, because I just had such a good time reading this book, and I highly recommend it. Especially you should read Bride first before you dive into Mate, because there are some spoilers for Bride in Mate, and you definitely just kind of want to get the full story, especially because there is this political system between vampires, werewolves, and humans, and you learn a lot about it in Bride, which I read Bride, I think, almost 2 years ago now, whenever it first came out. So I definitely think you should read both of these, and they're just fun for this season. Like, they're definitely like a good fall read. I know we're past Halloween now, but like, it's still just fun to read. Like, you don't have to read it in Halloween time. Basically, Mate does follow a character that we get introduced to in Bride, and she is like a human werewolf hybrid. Her mate in the story, which they believe is not to be her mate, but the man's mate, is a werewolf. And this is just like a fun, spicy werewolf romance. There is some sort of like political intrigue kind of going on with it, and you definitely will get into it, but I definitely think you should read Bride, which is a vampire werewolf arranged marriage. So you should definitely read both of them. And they're just like pretty short, they're fun, and they're just cute. And Ali Hazelwood always finds a way to bring like science into her books, but she makes it funny and it just makes me laugh every single time. Allie Hazelwood is just absolutely hilarious. So, highly, highly recommend Mate. I don't want to get too crazy into it because, again, there are some spoilers for Bride. I just really think that you will be confused at the beginning of Mate if you don't read Bride first. You could always go on the internet and look up, like, a synopsis of Bride or, like, you know, just things that'll help you know what's going on. You could definitely do that if you just want to read Mate. But I think you should read both. They're both really, really fun. I really liked these. Next, 2 books that I read. I'm not counting one of them because I DNF'd it, and it was The Intruder by Frida McFadden. This book is about a woman living in the woods, and she is in the middle of a storm one day. Someone is going to try to come and help her, try to fix her roof because it's like coming down during the storm, but then they don't end up fixing it. And it ends up during the storm, she looks outside her window, and there's a girl staring at her outside the window. I got 50 pages into it, and I just couldn't do it. The writing was just not good, unfortunately. And I've read a few other Frida McFadden books, and I felt similarly, like just that the writing wasn't very good, but I was able to get through it, and I just couldn't get through it. It was so bad. And I feel like Frida McFadden has these great stories living inside of her head. I feel like she has some really thrilling ideas, but she writes so quickly and she just throws books out there. Just don't think that her work gets the attention that it needs from her, and it doesn't get the editing, and it doesn't get what it needs to be the best book ever. And I think she has potential to be there. Like, yeah, her writing is a little bit more simple. It has the potential to be amazing just in a more simple like level, which is totally fine for a thriller. And I don't know, I think she has these good ideas, and it's just not executing well because she is writing so fast. So I did not count this one for my 2025 reading goal, and I didn't count it as a finished book. I just DNF'd it at 50 pages. I honestly could have gotten through it because her books are so short. It would have taken me a few hours to read, but I just didn't want to waste another few hours of my life trying to read this book when I just could not get into it. The next book that I read was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. And this book was just okay, and the writing wasn't that amazing either, but I did have a fun time reading it. It was cute, it was spicy. It took me maybe 3-4 hours to read, and so it was just like a really quick read that I enjoyed, and it was really cute for the October season. I ended up rating it 3 stars. It was better than Phantasma, so that's why I kind of went back and was like, Phantasma is like 2.5 stars, and this is more 3 stars for me. It follows Jeannie, and she is kind of escaping her like corporate assistant life. She goes to this small town called Dream Harbor, go over her aunt's coffee shop, which is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and she is just trying to rebuild herself and get out of that corporate life and just to have a more fun, relaxed life. And she meets the local farmer in town, and they get to know each other, they become friends, and it's just a really cute, fun, little spicy read. I think my problem with it and why I didn't rate it higher is that I just didn't really feel like there was a lot of character development, and there was also a few ongoing problems throughout the book that I felt like we had resolved earlier, and then it came back, and I was just like, I'm annoyed now. But other than that, I did have a fun time reading it, and it was just cute and fun. There's really nothing else to say about it. I would recommend it for the fall time, but it was nothing special. I believe that it is slightly overhyped, but it's fun, and it has a cute cover, and it's just for the fun, cozy vibes, in my opinion. And then the last book that I read in October was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Filming this video like a few days early, and then I'm gonna be posting it a week later. By this point, I'll have already read Two Twisted Crowns, which is the sequel to One Dark Window. I think that I might finish Two Twisted Crowns before the end of October anyway, so we're gonna kind of say this is a tentative 6-book October reading wrap up. But because I'm filming this and I'd only finished 5, I didn't want to cheat and say that I'd finished 6 when I hadn't yet. So we're just gonna say that we finished One Dark Window. And oh my god, this is a 5-star book for me. This book was absolutely incredible, and I'm already so obsessed with the sequel to Twisted Crowns. I don't own it because it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I bought One Dark Window a really long time ago, and I can't believe it took me this long to finally read One Dark Window because it is that freaking good. But this book follows Elspeth, and she was infected as a young child with this sort of like disease going through her world. It gave her magical powers, and then this magical power gave her a nightmare living inside of her head, and she has lived with this nightmare for the past 11 years. She used to be really, really scared of it, and it has now kind of almost become like her friend and her comfort, and they talk to each other in her head. But basically, in this world, they are infected by this evil magic, and it is controlled by these playing cards, and nobody has been able to find all the playing cards in like 500 years. All these cards hold the spirit of the wood is what they call it, and they're all trying to collect it so that they can get rid of this evil dark magic in this world. And so it's kind of like this hunt to find all these cards, and everyone is looking for them. And so she teams up with the king's nephew to try to look for all these cards. That way, the king's nephew can save his little brother, and then she can save herself. So they basically team up, and they're going on all these quests to find these cards, and they end up kind of liking each other, and it kind of becomes a fantasy romance, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in the fantasy like romantasy world. I would say it's a fantasy with a subplot of romance. Like, the romance isn't the heavy hitting part of the book. It is a fun part of the book, and it is spicy, but it's definitely not the main thing happening in the book like romantasy books tend to be. And I just loved it. The writing was so amazing, and you know, despite like the gothic kind of vibe of this book, there is like funny parts in it, and it is like entertaining still. I honestly didn't think that I would ever really be into like a gothic fantasy, because I didn't think that I would really be like entertained by it, and I was 100% entertained. Rachel Gillick's writing is just absolutely beautiful. She does such an amazing job describing things, and it just didn't feel like it was rushed. Like, it felt like she put her time with this book and really, really thought about the magic system and the world. And I just thought it was absolutely incredible, and I can't believe it took me this long to finally get into it. But it did, but I'm glad that we're here now, and I'm glad that I finally read it. And I'm absolutely in love with the second book so far. I've been listening mostly on audiobook, but I'm about to run out of Spotify audiobook hours. But I am, let's see, at this moment in time, on October 29th, I am 28% of the way through with Two Twisted Crowns. So hopefully I will get some reading done in the next couple of days, and I can actually finish it and include it into my October reading wrap up. But honestly, like, even if I had finished it, I wouldn't really talk about it that much, because I'd mostly be talking about One Dark Window. I wouldn't want to spoil Two Twisted Crowns for you, so I didn't really think it was that big of a deal that it wasn't included in this video. But absolutely love this duology. I highly, highly recommend it, and it's just amazing. So those are the 5, maybe 6-ish books that I read in October. I had a really, really fun time reading this month. Even though there were a few that just weren't as good, I definitely had a few amazing books that I read this month. And I'm really proud of myself for sticking to the fantasy genre this month, because it just screams fall in my opinion, and I love fantasy books. And yeah, that is all that I read in October, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!